Her deodorant was on the passenger seat of my car. Not in her gym bag, not rolling around the bathroom sink, literally perched like a forgotten totem of betrayal right where her thigh would have pressed against it. An odd little reminder she never took the bus that morning like she swore she did. Funny thing is, I'm not even mad about the deodorant. I'm mad that it was the same brand I use, which meant she'd been using mine at home and brought a separate one to freshen up after playing human twister with whatever walking cliché she was screwing behind my back. That's when I knew I wasn't just married to a cheater, I was married to a goddamn logistics coordinator. It was a Tuesday, not the kind of day meant for divine revelations or dramatic turns of fate. Tuesdays are reserved for leftovers and meetings that should have been emails. But here I was, standing in the garage, staring at a stick of Degree for Men as if it had just insulted my intelligence and spat in my face. She said she had taken the bus to yoga, that her car needed an oil change. Odd, considering the only oil that needed changing was on her neck, still glistening faintly in the bathroom mirror when I got home. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. That's not how men like me operate. I'm not the kind to storm into battle, screaming for justice. I burn down the castle brick by brick while the enemy sleeps inside. So I took a breath, picked up the stick of deodorant, and placed it on the kitchen table next to her mug, black coffee, no sugar, just how she liked it when she needed to sober up fast. She was still at her yoga class, allegedly stretching her moral compass somewhere on a sweaty mat. I checked her location history, disabled. Calendar? Empty. Phone? A bit too clean. Except for one thing, a recurring contact labeled M. Garden. Now, I'm not the smartest man alive, but I know my wife doesn't have a green thumb, and she sure as hell never mentioned a friend named Mark Garden. The texts were brief, but the timestamps were damning. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening. A call at 6:12 p.m. on the dot. Call ended between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. Yoga, indeed. So I did what any good husband would do. I made dinner. Her favorite, salmon, asparagus, couscous. I poured a glass of Pinot Noir and waited. She came home at 8:17, hair wet, gym bag slung over her shoulder, looking like a poorly written alibi. Traffic was brutal, she said, kicking off her shoes like she hadn't just come back from someone else's bed. I smiled. Kissed her cheek. You smell nice, I said. She froze just a second too long. New soap at the gym, she replied, and that's when I knew I'd caught her. Not in the dramatic, messy way, no. In the precise, surgical way that men like me specialize in. I told her I had a work trip coming up. 3 days. She barely blinked. Good. That's how I knew she was comfortable enough in her lie. She'd spend those nights in Mark Garden's bed, and I'd spend them building his destruction. I found him in less than a day. People are careless. They tag each other, comment on old photos, accidentally link their Venmo histories. A few hours online, and I had Mark Garden's Instagram, Facebook, his job, his mother's maiden name, and even the church's family still pretended to attend. He was soft. Not in the physical sense. He worked out, posted shirtless pics, did that annoying jaw clench thing in selfies. But emotionally? Soft. I could tell by the way he captioned things. Grateful for those who lift me up. Energy doesn't lie. No, Mark, but my wife does. I crafted a fake profile. Subtle, nothing suspicious, just a guy who went to college near him, had similar interests, followed the same obscure local bands. He accepted my request in under an hour. Rookie mistake. Over the next 2 weeks, I built a rapport with his online circle, liking old posts from his sister, commenting on his mom's charity runs, even messaging his cousin about a fake job opportunity. I was patient. Surgical. I waited for the right moment, and it came in the form of an invitation, his niece's birthday. A backyard party, small, intimate, family only. Perfect. I RSVP'd using my fake account, claiming to be a mutual friend. They welcomed me with open arms. I wore a hat, sunglasses, a trimmed beard. Nobody questioned it. The party was innocent, kids playing, parents laughing, cake being smeared across plastic plates. And then she walked in. My wife, holding Mark's hand, wearing the same smile she used to give me. She looked radiant. Radiant and rotten. I watched them laugh with his parents, introduce themselves to cousins, pretend to be the happy new couple. She didn't recognize me, not yet. But she would. I made sure of that. Because in my pocket, I carried the nuclear bomb, a USB drive filled with screenshots, timestamps, recordings. Not of her cheating. Of her mocking him. Telling her friend on a call how Mark thinks I'm moving in soon. Poor thing. How she's milking him for attention while my husband's out of town. how she called him Plan B with a six-pack. I waited until they were gathered around for photos, everyone smiling under balloons. Then I approached Mark's father. "Excuse me," I said. "I think you should see this." I handed him the drive and walked away before the eruption. The last thing I heard before the screaming started was my wife's voice, high-pitched, panicked. "Wait, what is this?" I didn't turn around. Didn't need to. Tuesday had become Judgment Day. Our life used to feel like a shared rhythm. Quiet mornings with coffee, her feet brushing mine under the table, the soft clink of wedding rings as we passed each other things without needing to speak. But that rhythm changed so slowly, it almost felt like I imagined it. She didn't stop kissing me goodbye, not exactly, but the kiss became lighter, shorter, more like an afterthought than affection. She still asked me about my day, but she'd scroll through her phone while I answered, nodding at all the wrong moments. It started with small things. She changed her workout schedule without telling me, started buying pre-made protein shakes that cluttered the fridge, even though she always said they were a scam. Then she began keeping her phone face down, not always, but enough to notice. I told myself it was nothing, that I was being paranoid. Maybe she was planning a surprise. Maybe she was stressed from work. Maybe I was the problem. But little things turned into patterns. One Saturday, she came home with a new handbag, high-end, beige leather, the kind she used to call excessive bullshit for bored housewives. I joked about it, said it didn't really suit her. She smiled like someone smiling through dental surgery and said, "I'm evolving." That was the first time I heard her say it. Evolving. She used to make fun of that word. Now it was her mantra. Suddenly, she was going to workshops I'd never heard of, meeting people with names like Sage and Orion, talking about chakras and shadow work. I listened. I supported. I drove her to one of those weekend retreats and didn't question why she turned her phone off the whole time. When I picked her up, she smelled different. Not bad. Not like another man. Just different, like sandalwood and citrus and something I couldn't place. I told myself it was the essential oils. She laughed more, but never with me. She took more selfies, but never with me. Her Instagram used to be full of pictures of us at breweries, family dinners, vacations. Now it was sunsets, books she hadn't read, blurry coffee mugs with vague captions like healing in progress. She said she was setting boundaries. I didn't argue. I didn't ask who the boundaries were for. Then she changed the password to her phone, said it was for security, that she was doing it for work. She worked in HR. I knew her job didn't require national security clearance, but I didn't push it. I trusted her. I still wore my ring every day, even when I didn't leave the house. I still made her coffee in the mornings. I still asked her if she needed anything when I went out. One night, she came back late, claimed she'd been out with coworkers. I asked who. She paused, then mumbled a few names I didn't recognize. I said nothing, but I checked her LinkedIn the next morning. None of them worked at her company. Maybe I misheard. Maybe they were new hires. I wanted to believe that. I really did. We used to watch movies together on Friday nights. Lately, she'd go to bed early or say she had a virtual meeting with her growth circle. I didn't know what a growth circle was. She never invited me. Her laughter from behind the closed office door sounded different, lighter somehow, like I'd never heard it before. One evening, I asked her if everything was okay. She looked up from her journal, another new addition to her routine, and said, "I just feel like I'm finally finding myself." I asked if I was still part of that version. She smiled, touched my hand, and said, "Of course." But it felt like the kind of course people say when they're already halfway out the door. Her car started to smell like mint and leather. There was a different kind of music playing on her Spotify, slow, breathy vocals with lyrics about freedom and release. She started dressing differently, too. More stylish, sharper lines, bold colors. Clothes she used to say weren't her style. I told her she looked amazing, and she thanked me, but her eyes flicked past me like I was just some guy holding the mirror. I tried to be supportive. I told myself love meant letting someone grow, even if that growth didn't involve you. One night, while taking out the trash, I noticed a receipt in the passenger footwell of her car, from a restaurant we'd never been to. 2 entrees, 1 cocktail, 1 whiskey. She didn't drink whiskey. I stood there in the garage for a long time, staring at that slip of paper like it was a foreign object, something I dug out of the earth and couldn't explain. She said she was vegan now. Had been for 2 weeks. But the receipt said steak. I started sleeping with one ear open, listening for signs. There were none. No moans. No names in her sleep. No lipstick-stained collars or strangers texting late at night. Just distance. Just silence. A slow, suffocating shift where my wife remained physically present but emotionally untethered, orbiting a new world I didn't have the map to. And still, I loved her. Still, I wanted to believe she was just going through something. A phase. A crisis. A glitch in the matrix. I didn't want to believe I was the glitch. I kept telling myself that when someone you love changes, you change with them. But the truth was, I was just being left behind. And I was the last one to notice. It was a Sunday morning, one of those lazy, golden-lit hours where everything moves slower, coffee brewing, birds chirping like nothing in the world could go wrong, and she was in the shower humming some tune I didn't recognize. A bit too cheerful for someone who claimed to be emotionally exhausted. I was folding laundry on the bed, her phone right there on the dresser, screen lighting up like a nervous tick, buzzing softly every few seconds, always flipped face down as if shame itself had a user interface. I wasn't planning to look. I'd sworn I wouldn't. But then it buzzed again, and this time the notification slipped through, a preview from someone saved as Jules with a heart emoji. Not a name I knew, and not the kind of heart you send a friend. I picked it up without thinking, fingers calm, deliberate, as if I were inspecting evidence rather than violating something sacred. The screen opened, no password. Maybe she forgot to lock it after a Spotify scroll. Maybe she trusted I still respected her privacy. I used to. I really did. But the messages made it very clear I was the only one playing by those rules. Still taste you on my lips from Friday. Can't stop thinking about it. Missed waking up next to you. Followed by a photo. Blurry. Naked shoulders. Her hand holding a mug I recognized because I bought it for her on our anniversary. My name was engraved on the side. The photo was taken in our guest room. My brain didn't react the way I expected it to. No rage, no heartbreak, just this eerie clarity, like the fog had lifted and I was seeing the blueprint of betrayal laid out in brutal simplicity. She wasn't just cheating. She was using my house, my mug, my time, my life, and she was giving it to someone else like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. I put the phone back exactly where it was, screen down, angle unchanged, as if it had never moved. She was still singing in the shower, voice off key, happy. I stared at the bathroom door and felt nothing. Not hate. Not sorrow. Just precision. She had looked me in the eye Friday night and told me she was visiting her sister. Said she needed girl time to reconnect with herself. Said she didn't want to feel guilty for needing space. I had smiled. Told her to take all the time she needed. Watched her walk out the door with an overnight bag and a yoga mat she hadn't used in weeks. I even helped her carry it to the car. And now I was staring at a message where someone else was still tasting the woman who swore up and down she just needed to breathe without expectations. That's when I stopped being her husband. Not officially, not publicly. But internally, spiritually, I buried her in that moment. Whatever warmth I still held for her evaporated, leaving behind something cleaner, colder. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing she broke me. No, I was going to bury her the same way she buried me, with a smile and a perfectly timed silence. The water stopped. She stepped out humming, toweling her hair, oblivious. Walked into the bedroom wrapped in a robe and kissed me on the cheek. "You're up early," she said. I smiled. "Couldn't sleep," I replied. "We should do brunch." She lit up like I handed her a new light to wear. "Yeah? That'd be nice." I told her I'd make the reservation, and I did. I picked her favorite spot, the one with overpriced avocado toast and mimosas that made her giggle like a teenager. I watched her pick out a dress in the mirror, spinning slightly to check how it hugged her hips. The same hips some other man had just woken up next to. She didn't notice my stare. Didn't feel the shift. That was her first mistake. Her second was assuming I would stay quiet forever. But I did stay quiet today. We went to brunch. We laughed. We shared a dessert. She even held my hand across the table like we were in a rom-com montage. But inside, I was already designing the final scene. The details were forming names, faces, addresses, patterns. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to erase her. The woman she pretended to be, the image she carefully curated, the admiration she collected from friends, coworkers, even him. I was going to dismantle it piece by piece until there was nothing left but the truth, laid bare and ugly. I would give her the space she claimed to crave, not an inch more. The war had already begun. She just didn't know she'd already lost. I didn't confront her, not yet. That would have been premature, like slapping the queen off the board just because she leaned in too close. No, I watched. That's what predators do when the prey doesn't know it's been marked. She had no idea I'd seen the messages. No idea her careful lies had already unraveled under the weight of one photo taken in a room I paid for, holding a mug with my name on it like a souvenir from her betrayal. I played my part, husband, confidant, clueless. I kissed her forehead before she left in the mornings, brought her favorite snacks home unprompted, even told her I loved her just to hear how forced her reply had become. And while she was out healing and reconnecting, I was doing some exploring of my own. Only my path to clarity wasn't paved with crystals and self-help podcasts. It started with our joint bank statements. I told her I'd been thinking about investing and asked for her login to check a few transactions. She hesitated for a breath, barely a flicker, then gave it. Mistake. I pulled 2 years' worth of data, filtered by zip code. Looked for anomalies, not the big charges, but the repeating small ones. A Thai takeout place 2 towns over, always on Tuesdays and Thursdays. A floral shop with the same charge every third Friday. A mobile payment to someone named MG Services clever, but not clever enough. I cross-referenced the addresses. The Thai place? Across the street from a tiny apartment complex. A few Google clicks, and I had it. Unit 4B, leased under a marked G. I checked her calendar. Therapy was her entry every Thursday evening. Apparently, therapy now came with spring rolls and a man named Mark. But I didn't stop there. I needed to know how deep she was. I made a new email. Created a profile on a community Facebook group she followed under a fake name, Jason L. Clean cut, single dad, profile picture with a golden retriever I borrowed from a stock photo site. I posted a few wholesome replies to group threads, commented on some mindfulness content, shared a meme about tea. Within days, I got a friend request from her best friend, Tara, the gatekeeper of her lies. I played it cool. Just enough interest, not too much. After a week, I messaged Tara. Said I was new in town, working remote, looking to connect with people into spiritual alignment and good energy. She bit hard. Tara talked a lot when she thought she wasn't being watched. Within 3 days, I knew that Jules was a nickname, not a contact name short for Julian, the guy she'd met at a retreat upstate back in March. The one she claimed was just part of the group. Apparently, he was now part of her bed. But it wasn't just Julian. There were messages between Tara and another friend, screenshots she'd saved, just in case, talking about how my wife had a pattern of getting bored and sabotaging things that are good for her. The words didn't even sting. They just confirmed what I already knew. She wasn't lost. She was in control. Calculating. Cruel. So I got a burner phone. Cheap. Prepaid. Texted her from a number she didn't know, posing as someone who'd found her wallet near the floral shop. She didn't reply. Called instead. Her voice was nervous. "Where did you find it?" she asked. "Near the Thai place," I said. Dead silence for 2 beats. Then a fake laugh. "I must have dropped it when I was visiting a friend." I hung up. There was no wallet. Just bait. And she swallowed it whole. I planted questions like landmines. Asked her how therapy went, even though I'd tracked her phone that night to Mark's apartment building. She said it was heavy but healing. I nodded, asked if she wanted to talk about it. She said, "No, I'm still processing." "Of course you are. You were processing him, weren't you?" Then I got surgical. I used an app to clone her phone data to a local backup anytime she connected to the home Wi-Fi. Pulled message threads, voice notes, even calendar drafts she hadn't finalized. One caught my attention, M+J cabin retreat. It wasn't marked private. It wasn't even saved officially. Just sitting there in her drafts like a secret waiting to be told. I knew where. I knew when. She booked a cabin 2 hours north for a weekend in late October. Said she was going alone. Said it was a solo reset. Said she needed time to think about our future. I smiled. Told her I supported her. That she deserved the space. I even bought her a travel mug for the trip, something sleek and stylish. She kissed me on the cheek and said I was finally understanding her growth. She packed that mug the night before she left. I watched her zip it into the side pocket of her duffel, thinking she was the master of her little universe. She had no idea I'd already scheduled a meeting with the cabin manager, already confirmed the reservation was for 2 guests, already hacked into her email and printed out the confirmation page addressed to Julian and her name, celebrating love. I said nothing, just smiled as she drove away. Let her play out her fantasy. Let her believe the stage was hers. Because I wasn't just following her story anymore. I was writing the ending, and it was going to be spectacular. It happened at the company holiday gala, of all places, one of those glossy, overlit hotel ballroom events where everyone's overdressed and underimpressed, pretending the eggnog isn't terrible and that the open bar makes up for a year of being ignored by upper management. She was there on my arm, red dress too tight in the right places, heels that clicked like punctuation marks, smiling wide for every handshake, every photo. She looked like the perfect corporate wife, poised, polished, present. But I knew. I'd already seen the video, sent to me anonymously through a burner Instagram account 2 nights before. I don't know who filmed it. Maybe someone in the same building, maybe one of Julian's exes, maybe fate with a camera phone, but the footage was clear. My wife, sitting on the lap of a man whose face I now knew too well, in what looked like a rented Airbnb. Her dress halfway off, wine glass in one hand, his belt in the other. It had sound. She laughed, called him my escape, said she didn't miss the old ball and chain one bit, said she was just playing the role until she could upgrade permanently. And yet, there she was, playing the role, arm hooked through mine, introducing me to her coworkers like I was some trophy she dusted off for special occasions. I let her have her moment. I smiled for the camera. I kissed her temple when someone complimented us. And then I told her I had a surprise. Took her by the hand, past the bar, past the buffet, through a side hallway that led to a smaller room reserved for a team slideshow that no one ever really watched. I'd rented it in advance, paid off the AV tech to let me cue my own content. Told him it was a tribute to our department's growth. He didn't care. I dimmed the lights. Invited her to sit in the front row. She was still laughing when the first frame appeared. Not a graph. Not a chart. But her mouth open in mid-laugh, Julian's hand cupping her thigh. The audio kicked in next. That same laugh, that same voice, saying things she could never take back. He still thinks I'm at yoga. So pathetic. I didn't look at her. I looked at the screen, as if seeing it for the first time. Her breath caught. What the hell is this? She whispered, already halfway out of her seat. Is this a joke? Denial. The first shield. I said nothing. Let the next clip roll. Her in bed, talking about how she could get away with anything as long as she kept me fed and laid just enough to keep suspicion down. She turned to me. This isn't what it looks like. Second shield. I turned to her, calm. Then tell me what it is. Her mouth opened, then closed. We were talking. We were drunk. I didn't mean anything by it. I nodded. So you say these kinds of things when you're drunk? That you're just using me until something better comes along? Her face twisted. You were never around. You buried yourself in work. You were boring. What was I supposed to do? Rot waiting for you to notice me. There it was. Justification. I stood slowly, walked to the screen, paused the video right where she looked the happiest. So you decided to lie. Not once. Not for a week. But for over a year. And you brought him into our home. Used our money. Slept in our bed. And now, here, in front of everyone, your only defense is that I didn't entertain you enough? Her jaw clenched. You don't understand what it's like to be desired by someone who actually listens. He sees me. The words hung in the air. And then she smiled, mocking now, confident, defiant. You know what? Maybe this is for the best. Maybe this is your wake-up call. I deserve better than someone who spies on me like a damn stalker. I stepped forward, my voice quiet. You're not the victim here. You're just upset the mask slipped. And for once, someone saw the real you. Her face cracked. The confidence drained. Just a fraction. I leaned closer. Tell me, when you were faking moans for him, were you imagining someone else, too? Or were you just that empty? Her eyes widened. She started, but her voice caught. Fear. Finally. The realization that she didn't control this scene anymore. That I had rewritten the script, and her lines no longer mattered. I walked to the door, hand on the knob, then turned back. This room's reserved for another 30 minutes. You'll need the time to think about what comes next. I didn't wait for her response. The lights were still dim, the screen still frozen, and she was just sitting there, surrounded by echoes, her own voice haunting the silence she once filled with lies. I didn't leave. Not yet. I just stood outside the glass, watching her silhouette collapse into itself like a dying star. She came home that night like a tornado in heels, slamming the front door hard enough to rattle picture frames, her voice already rising before she even saw me sitting at the kitchen table. How dare you humiliate me like that in front of everyone? She shouted, tossing her purse down like a gauntlet. I didn't move, didn't blink, just watched her unravel. You planned that, she hissed, stepping forward. You set me up, you vindictive piece of. Her voice cracked, caught between rage and panic, like a violin string pulled too tight. I said nothing, just tilted my head slightly. That silence hit her harder than any insult ever could. She tried again, shifting gears without missing a beat. You smothered me. You smothered me every single day with your routines and your boring, lifeless conversations. I needed oxygen. I met her eyes and replied, calmly. So you lit a match and blamed me for the fire. That made her flinch. She started pacing, voice dripping acid now. You think you're some hero? You think you're smart? You were just too pathetic to see it coming. Do you know how easy it was to lie to you? You made it so easy. I nodded. I know. Her mouth snapped shut at that. She hadn't expected me to agree. She was expecting outrage, a fight, something to grab onto. But I'd become untouchable. And she hated it. You were boring, she spat, her face contorting with the bitterness of a child who just broke her own toy. You didn't see me anymore. You stopped making me feel alive. I let the silence hang again, let her rage echo off the walls she'd stained with lies. Then I said, no, I saw you. I just finally understood what I was looking at. Her eyes narrowed. She stepped closer, trying to tower over me, trying to reclaim some sense of dominance. This wouldn't have happened if you were a real man. The words hung in the air like poison. I stood up, slowly, evenly, not a flicker of emotion on my face. A real man, I said, doesn't scream to prove he's in control. He just quietly removes everything you thought you owned. Her breath hitched. You think this is over? She snapped, voice shaking. You think you're just going to walk away and look like the good guy? You're not. People will know what you did. How you tricked me. How you used me. I took a step forward, watching her shrink as I approached. They already know. But more importantly, you know? And you'll never escape that. She stared at me, wide-eyed, the realization finally bleeding through her bravado. I gave you years of my life, she whispered. And you set it on fire. I nodded again. No. You gave me lies. I just handed them back, neatly packaged. She backed up then, hands shaking as she grabbed onto the counter, mascara smudged, breath shallow, voice trembling as she tried one last tactic, the one that used to work best. I was hurting, she said, softer now, cracks forming in the performance. You don't understand what it's like to feel alone in your own marriage. I walked past her, opened the fridge, poured myself a glass of water. No, I said without looking back. But I understand what it's like to live with someone who made me feel that way every day while smiling to my face. She tried again. You're just doing this because you're afraid to admit you failed. You're afraid of being alone. I turned, slowly, looked her dead in the eyes. I was already alone. The difference is now I'm free. That broke her. Her breath came in shallow gasps, shoulders trembling. And for a moment, I saw the truth behind every mask she'd ever worn, fear. Not of me, but of irrelevance, of consequence, of finally being held accountable without drama to hide behind. She sank into a chair, head in her hands, muttering something about how this was all backwards and none of this was supposed to happen. I stood above her, calm, steady, a mirror she couldn't shatter no matter how hard she tried. You spent so long pretending to be something you're not, I said, voice low but sharp, that now even you don't know what's real anymore. She looked up, eyes rimmed red, lips trembling like a child about to beg. Please, she said, barely audible. But I didn't respond. I just walked to the door, not to leave, not yet, but to let the silence close around her like a coffin. She had screamed, lied, manipulated, attacked, but nothing pierced me. And that's when she knew. It was over. Not because I left, but because I stopped caring. And that terrified her most of all. I began with the finances, because money is the bloodstream of illusions, and I wanted her world to bleed out slowly. I waited until she went on another one of her solo retreats, likely another weekend with Julian, and then I moved like a ghost through every account we shared. The joint credit cards were the first to go. I canceled them, left her with one she never used because it had a high interest rate and an expired billing address. Then I transferred everything from our shared checking to my personal savings, quietly, legally, completely. The utilities were all in my name. Water, gas, electricity. I scheduled transfers to cut her access the moment I left. The car? Technically mine. I paid for it in full and never changed the title. I took the spare key, drove it to my friend's garage, and left it there under lock and key. Let her wonder where it went. Let her sit on the curb calling tow companies while I sat miles away, sipping coffee and watching her desperation crawl through her texts. I didn't block her. I wanted her to see everything. That was step one. Step two was the evidence. I backed up every message, every photo, every GPS ping, every video, including the one from the Airbnb. I saved copies in the cloud, encrypted USBs, printed out timelines with dates, and cross-referenced them against our bank statements and calendar entries. I organized it all into a single folder, digital and physical, titled Clarity. For the lawyer, for her family, for the world if it ever came to that. Then I scheduled a meeting with a divorce attorney who specialized in high-asset cases and digital forensics. I showed him everything. He smiled halfway through the presentation and said, "You've basically done our job already." I smiled back and replied, "I like to be prepared." The paperwork was filed under seal, delivered discreetly while she was at work, served to her in a vanilla envelope by a man in a suit so nondescript he looked like he belonged in the wallpaper. She still hadn't realized what was happening. Next came the house. It was mine before we married, inheritance from my father. I let her believe it was ours for the sake of peace, but legally it was always mine. I contacted a locksmith, changed every lock while she was gone, left a note inside, "You won't need keys where you're going." Her clothes? Boxed, labeled, stored in the basement with security cameras pointed directly at the door. I wanted her to see I wasn't petty. I was precise. Her access to our streaming services, email aliases, cloud accounts, gone. Passwords changed. I even reclaimed the wedding ring, took it off her nightstand, placed it inside a clear jewelry box, and left it on the table where she used to drink her morning tea, right beside a notarized letter confirming the annulment of all pending shared asset claims. That was the paperwork. But revenge isn't complete without witnesses. I called her parents, calmly, respectfully, asked if we could meet. I showed them the evidence. Let them watch the videos, read the messages, hear her voice as she belittled me to her lover like I was some washed-up trophy husband she'd outgrown. Her father cried. Her mother just stared at the screen, silent, as if trying to memorize every lie their daughter had lived. I said nothing more. Just gave them copies of the evidence and wished them well. Then came the friends, the real ones, the mutuals. I didn't send a mass message. I sent individualized notes, screenshots, dates. I let them draw their own conclusions. Most replied with some version of, "I'm so sorry." One, her oldest friend, simply wrote, "I always knew she'd do something like this." Satisfying, yes. But it wasn't the end. Her job was next. I didn't call her boss. That would have been too dramatic. I sent an anonymous packet to HR, containing the romantic email she'd sent from her work account, along with the cabin reservation receipt she'd foolishly submitted for professional development reimbursement. Not illegal, but unethical enough to trigger a formal inquiry. She worked in a role where character was currency. She'd bankrupted hers. Let them sort out the consequences. All of this took 2 weeks. Just 2. And she still thought I hadn't made a move. She was still in the game, still lying, still gaslighting, still calculating ways to fix things and spin herself into the victim. She texted me after the divorce papers landed. "We can still talk. Maybe this isn't the end." I didn't reply. I just posted a photo. Me, smiling with a friend, a real woman, a good one, out at a dinner she'd once begged me to take her to but claimed I wasn't spontaneous enough for. No caption, just the image. Her sister liked it. That was the final move. Not because it hurt her, but because it told her the war was over. And she never even knew when it began. It happened at her sister's engagement party, an upscale garden event filled with white string lights, soft jazz, and the kind of champagne you only buy when you want to pretend everything in your life is perfect. She was dressed in blue, the shade she always said made her feel like royalty, hair done in soft curls, laughing just a little too loudly as she held court with a group of distant cousins she barely liked. She didn't know the storm was coming, but I did. I had chosen this setting for a reason, neutral ground, familiar faces, no way out. The truth was already in the room, breathing through every fake smile, every sideways glance, every quiet whisper passed like a secret between wine glasses. Her parents were the first to go cold, greeting me with warmth and her with hollow nods. Her mother didn't hug her. Her father didn't make his usual dad joke about her being late. They just watched her, like strangers studying a liar at a witness stand. She noticed. I saw it in the way her smile faltered for a split second before snapping back into place like a mask pulled tight with tape. Then her best friend arrived. Tara. The one who'd once helped her lie to me. Now fully aware of the truth, thanks to the same screenshots I'd sent her family. Tara walked past her, straight to me, hugged me tight, whispered, "I'm sorry," like it was a prayer, and gave my ex a look colder than ice. My wife, or ex-wife, though she hadn't signed the final papers yet, tried to laugh it off. "Tara, are we doing dramatic entrances now?" she joked, voice just a little too high, a little too tight. Tara didn't respond, just sipped her drink and walked away. She was losing them one by one, and she could feel it. Her eyes darted around, searching for someone, anyone, to lean on. Then she saw me, sitting calmly at a table beneath the string lights, perfectly composed, sipping from a glass of scotch I hadn't touched. She walked over slowly, like someone approaching a wild animal, still believing she could charm it back into submission. "You've been busy," she said. I was trying to spark something between us that no longer existed. I didn't reply, just looked at her like she was someone I used to know. "You think you won, don't you?" she said, that sharpness returning to her tone. "But all you did was air out dirty laundry. You made yourself look bitter." Her voice cracked on that last word, but she pushed through. "People get bored in marriages. It happens. Doesn't make me evil." I said nothing, just leaned back slightly and took a sip. That silence was louder than any accusation. She was unraveling now, cheeks flushing, voice rising. "You know what? Fine. Let's put it all out there. Let's see how perfect you are." But before she could launch into whatever fantasy she had prepared, her sister, sweet, diplomatic, loyal to a fault little Emily, approached holding her phone like a weapon. She didn't raise her voice, didn't scream, just showed her the screen. A video. The video. The one where she sat half-dressed in another man's lap, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate me. My ex froze. "Where did you get that?" she asked, voice no longer steady. Emily's expression didn't change. "Everyone's seen it," she said flatly. "We just didn't want to believe it until now." Silence fell like a guillotine. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. My ex-wife stood in the center of the party, blue dress suddenly looking like a costume from a life she no longer belonged to, surrounded by people who had once adored her, and now only pitied her. She tried to speak. "It's taken out of context," she muttered, grasping at air. "It was just a joke. Julian and I," she paused. Swallowed hard. It didn't mean anything. Then the final blow came. Her phone buzzed in her hand. A message popped up from Julian. She read it. Her face went pale. I already knew what it said. "I saw the video. Don't contact me again." I had made sure he got it before she ever arrived. She dropped the phone. Literally. It hit the grass with a dull thud. She reached for me, hand trembling. "Please," she whispered. "We can fix this." I looked at her like a stranger. "We," I said quietly. "There is no we. There's just what you chose." She stepped back, mouth opening and closing, eyes wide and wet, panic setting in as the full weight of her isolation crushed down. I didn't move, didn't smirk, didn't gloat. I just stayed. Let her see me. Let her see what she lost. That stillness, my absolute indifference, hit her harder than any slap could have. She turned, stumbling slightly, looked for anyone to defend her. No one moved. No one even met her eyes. Her world had finally collapsed, not with a bang, but with suffocating silence. And I was still there, watching, calm, unmoved. She would remember that forever. It happened 3 weeks after the engagement party, at a family gathering she wasn't supposed to attend, my nephew's birthday, of all things, with balloons, streamers, and a dozen people who used to think the sun rose and set on her smile. I hadn't invited her, of course, but she showed up anyway, unannounced, uninvited, like a storm no one saw coming. She walked in like nothing had happened, carrying a gift bag with cartoon dinosaurs, wearing that fake warm expression she used to wear like armor. My sister's face tightened the moment she saw her, and my brother-in-law stood up instinctively, as if preparing to intercept a threat. Everyone fell silent. Even the kids, mid-laugh, turned to see why the room had frozen. And there she was, standing in the doorway, scanning the crowd for allies and finding none. I didn't say a word at first, just stood slowly and stared at her like she was a ghost that hadn't figured out she was dead. "You're not supposed to be here," I said calmly, but loud enough that the entire room heard it. Her smile twitched. "I just came to talk. To explain." I took a step forward. "You came to rewrite history. But we already read the book. And no one liked the ending." Her eyes darted to my mother, who turned away without a word. Her father stood still, jaw tight. Her mother just looked at the floor. That's when her composure cracked. "You've poisoned everyone against me," she snapped, her voice sharp. "You made me out to be some villain, like I never cared about anyone." I laughed once, humorless and cold. "You were the villain. You lied. You manipulated. You slept with another man in my house and laughed about it behind my back. What part of that do you think deserves a redemption arc?" Gasps rippled through the room. One of her cousins covered her mouth. Someone near the back started recording, the screen glow unmistakable. "You don't understand what I was going through," she yelled, stepping toward me. "You don't get what it's like to live with someone who acts like a statue, silent, judgmental, cold." I didn't flinch. "You were never looking for warmth. You were looking for permission to betray without guilt. You don't want understanding. You want permission to be a coward." She was shaking now, trying to smile, failing. "I made a mistake," she screamed. "One mistake." I turned, pointing to the room. Tell them it was one mistake. Show them the cabin receipt, the videos, the texts. Shall I play them now?" She froze. I was lost. She tried again, softer. I didn't know who I was anymore. I stepped closer, voice like a scalpel. "You knew exactly who you were. That's why you kept it hidden. You were never lost. You were just hoping no one would find out." She backed away, bumping into the dessert table, knocking over a tray of cupcakes. The room stayed silent. No one helped her. No one moved. Her friend, Tara, stepped forward finally, but not toward her. Toward me. She looked at her once best friend and said, "You did this. Not him." Her face contorted, rage and panic dancing together. "You're all insane. He's manipulated you. He's the one who set me up." I nodded. "I did. I let you lie, cheat, laugh, and dig your own grave. And then I showed the world what you buried." She lunged forward like she might slap me, but someone, my brother, stepped in, arm out, firm. "Don't," he said. "You're already finished." Her hands trembled. Her voice broke. "Please, someone, just listen to me," she begged, looking around, desperate now. No one answered. Even the children were silent, sensing the collapse of something adult and ugly. "I gave him everything," she whimpered, "and he threw me away like trash." I stepped in close, so only she could hear. "No, you threw me away. I just made sure everyone saw it." She sobbed once, loud and ragged, the kind that doesn't ask for sympathy, it demands it. But there was none left in the room. Not an ounce. She stood there, broken, surrounded by the wreckage of her own lies, mascara streaked, lips trembling, as I turned, walked past the guests, past the camera still recording, out into the sunlit yard without looking back. I didn't need to see the rest. She was already destroyed. And the best part? I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't have to raise a hand. I just told the truth. And it did all the work for me. 6 months later, she was unrecognizable. Not in the physical sense. She still wore the same face, still tried to fake that confident walk, but it was like watching a ghost pretend it belonged in the world of the living. After the party, word spread faster than wildfire, and not just among friends and family. Her company quietly placed her on leave after the HR investigation confirmed the professional development retreat she expensed was really a weekend of adultery. By the time they terminated her contract, they didn't even offer a severance package. Her work friends disappeared first. Those who used to call her queen in the comment sections of her brunch selfies suddenly stopped liking anything she posted. Then came the purging, blocked by people she once considered ride or die, left on read by relatives who once praised her at holidays. Her mother stopped speaking to her after the second voicemail. Her father didn't even attend her birthday dinner. She sold her car, canceled the lease on her high-rise apartment, and moved 2 hours north to a town no one had ever heard of, taking a job at a cheap retail store that didn't run background checks and didn't care what your resume used to look like. The man she called an escape, the one she risked everything for. He vanished the moment the lights came on and her real self was exposed. No goodbye, no defense, not even a reply to her texts. One of her old friends told me she was seen crying in the parking lot outside his gym, holding his favorite hoodie like a relic. It didn't matter. He was already sleeping with someone else. The last I heard, she lived in a basement suite and took public transportation to work, eyes down, hoping no one recognized her. But I knew she would eventually crawl back. And she did. It started with an email. "I still think about you every day." Then a text. "I made mistakes. You didn't deserve it." Then a voicemail. 38 seconds of shaky breathing, half-formed apologies, and that old line, "I still love you." I didn't reply. She showed up at my house 2 weeks after that, standing at my doorstep in the same coat she used to wear when everything still made sense. Her eyes were sunken, her lips cracked, makeup smeared like a war paint job she didn't have the strength to finish. "I just want to talk," she whispered when I opened the door. "Please. I don't know who I am anymore." I looked at her like she was some stranger trying to sell me religion. "You knew exactly who you were when you burned it all down," I said. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Tears welled instantly. "I was stupid," she said, voice cracking. "I thought I needed more, and I didn't see what I had. I didn't see you. But I do now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me, not to invite her in, but to make it clear she never would be again. "You don't see me," I said. "You see what you lost. And you miss the man who forgave everything. Because he doesn't exist anymore." She tried to grab my hand. I pulled it away like it was something infected. "You can't take it back," I continued. "You don't get to destroy something and cry over the ashes like you're the victim. I buried what we had, and I don't visit graves." Her shoulders collapsed in on themselves. She looked so small then, so defeated, so pitiful, but I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just a cool, hollow clarity. She had already gotten every piece of mercy I had to give. "You still wear the ring?" she asked weakly, staring at my hand. I held it up. "No, this one's from someone new." That broke her. The tears came fast, ugly, uncontrollable. She dropped to the steps, sobbing into her hands like she was mourning a death. And in a way, she was. She was grieving the version of herself that used to be loved. I watched her cry, let the silence hang between us one final time, then spoke the last words I would ever give her. "You didn't lose me. You threw me away." And with that, I turned and went back inside, locking the door on the past for good. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it wasn't easy, but sometimes the truth shouldn't be. Tell me, where are you listening from? And did you enjoy the ride?